Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of the Divorce Chronicles with your host, me, Shauna Warden. Today, I'm talking to Afreen Gootee, who is the owner of Thoughtful Minds Consulting. Afreen is a trauma-informed educator and stress management expert who helps people better understand how overwhelming life experiences affect the nervous system. Although much of her work is with businesses and organizations, the tools she teaches are just as valuable for moms going through separation, divorce, and the challenges of co-parenting. If you've been living in survival mode, today's conversation is going to give you some insight into why your body feels the way it does, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Hi, Afreen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Shauna. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to somebody who is doing the Lord's work out there, helping with the nervous system regulation. I think it's much needed, not only in the divorce field, but just in general. Everyone these days could use some help with that. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about how to navigate stress management, nervous system regulation, and a little bit about where you can come in and how you can help.
Sounds good.
So just to introduce you to our audience, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am, I have been married for a long time. I have 3 kids and 2 in-law kids and 2 grandkids who are a lot of fun right now, good ages. And I have been in the education realm this is going into my 39th year. I taught for 32 years. And I've been subbing for the last 7 years now. So I still have my hands in education. I retired in 2019 and then opened up my own business, Thoughtful Minds Consulting, in 2020, March of 2020. Great time to open a business, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I stuck with it, and Thoughtful Minds is doing pretty well. I collaborate with schools and different businesses to provide trainings for their staff. And the trainings that I do are stress management, cultural awareness, trauma-informed care, and group dynamics.
Yeah, and like I said before, I mean, man, the workplace is a second home to a lot of people. And sometimes,
Right.
for most of us, most of
Yeah.
the people out there, they spend more time at work than they do at their homes and with their families. So definitely having someone like you that comes in and teaches us, like you were saying, that trauma-informed care, because we're all coming in with different backgrounds, different situations, and we all have to learn how to, work together and lean on each other and use our skills. And so it's much needed for sure.
Exactly. And coming into the workplace, a lot of times there are 2 things. Employers don't realize that their employees are dealing with stress. And even if they do, they don't realize that a lot of times there's trauma behind those stressors.
Mhm.
And, sometimes it's great to be able to say, you want to check it at the door when we come in, but we can't, not always.
Mhm.
And then just if you understand where somebody else is coming from, what they've been, you don't need to know their whole history, but to understand it and be more compassionate really does make for a much better work environment. And I think if your work environment's better, then when you go home, you can really hopefully work at the door and continue with a more healthy lifestyle.
Yes. And like you said, I mean, especially since COVID, a lot of us had never or have not ever returned back to the office. So our lives are all kind of enmeshed
Right.
where is the boundary between work and home? Or even if you work at an office, we all carry around cell phones. We're
Yeah.
accessible 24/7. And so there really is not that turn off switch that we've learned how to leave things at home or leave things at work. And we really need to be more conscious of when we're stepping in a new role and out of
Right.
our old role. We really need to remember to kind of be
Close one
aware of
door.
how we're treating people around us.
Yeah, and I really strongly believe that you do have to set boundaries for yourself, whether you have an outside office or
Mhm.
inside. Inside is even harder because, like you said, your laptop's right there, your phone is right there, it can ring. And it takes a lot of discipline to say, you know
Mhm.
what, it is 5 o'clock, I'm done with work, whatever I have, we'll have to wait till tomorrow.
Mhm.
Those emails, we live in such a on-demand society.
Mhm.
When you send an email, you want a response back. You send a text, they
Yeah.
don't give you a response back. And at some point, you just have to say, it's 5 o'clock, or it's the weekend, or I'm going to the river, so I'm not taking my laptop. It's hard. I have a hard time too.
Yes, it is hard. And, more than ever, we're like, what can we squeeze? Oh, I can just, quickly send this email back.
Right.
Or, I'm waiting in line. I can reply to this person.
Yeah.
I
If I'm at
certainly
the
have
doctor's
been,
office, let me check my email.
yeah,
It is. It's
yeah,
really hard to turn off that
yes.
switch.
But I'm sure, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like if you have emailed a client back at 10 p.m. because it's
Mhm.
convenient for you and you're looking at your email,
Mhm.
you're now training that person that you're available at 10 p.m.
Exactly. Right. And
Thank God for like technology where we can schedule our emails and schedule our text messages now. That's been
true.
very helpful.
Yeah, that and also even just being able to turn your phone on silent, at 10
Yes.
o'clock. Yes, I sent that email out at 10, but now I'm like not in the mood to respond to things. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
something that's definitely helped me is like I turn off my notifications for my email. So if I'm checking email, like I physically have to go in and see, what I'm not getting pinged every time an
right,
email comes
exactly.
in.
Mhm.
You mentioned do not disturb or sleep mode, when you go to bed. So you're not,
Right.
if you want to focus on work, you can shut it down for,
Do
for
yeah,
a while.
you can do it the other way around. If you want to concentrate on work, then you turn it where your cell phone doesn't ring you for the next hour or two.
Right.
So, those things are set in place for a reason. And they're there for us to use, and
Yeah.
hopefully they're there for others to respect.
Yeah, and it definitely leads into the divorce culture because, especially when you are going through the separation, you're going through the process, you're not yet divorced. If you have kids, or even if you don't have kids from that marriage,
Mhm.
there is still some level of communication that has to happen in order to get to an agreement. So
Right.
you have to communicate about your wants, your needs,
Sure.
dividing assets, things like that. And then if you do have kids, you've got all the other kid stuff that you have to
Right.
communicate about.
Schedule.
And I
Mm.
know from experience and from working with so many clients, you see that name come through on your phone and you're instantly triggered.
Right, right. I wonder, I've never thought about it, but I wonder, could you change the name to something different? Well, you obviously know it's still them, but maybe you put a Shauna, it's like, look what you need, 'cause that'll probably trigger somebody. But just, I don't even have a good example, but
Yeah, no, that is a good example because that
maybe
is,
it's Sally, so
yeah.
maybe when that the name pops up, the name Sally doesn't make you take a deep breath as much as Shauna would, right? And
Yes. Yep. You're exactly right. And that is what I have coached my clients to do. And it is tricky if there's kids involved because a lot of times they're using the phone to call
right,
the other
right,
parent. So you don't want to put, anything
derogatory,
vulgar or
right?
but I have a client who put like a little kitty cat face because it's less like intimidating. And
Right,
so
exactly.
just these little,
Yeah,
like, time frame or mind frames that you can change,
yeah,
and, I read something, that you had responded that I also practice with my clients is that leads into what we were talking about, is not responding right away. Like, we are just so trained to respond to everything in real time
right.
that when you do that, you're getting that initial reaction, which if
Yeah,
you give yourself 30 minutes, an hour, heck, even a day, if it's
yeah.
not an emergency, and then you come back and respond, it's a much different response than if you just blast it out immediately.
A gut reaction, especially if it's someone with whom you have a negative relationship, and even if it's something as mundane as what time do I need to pick up the kid? In your thought process, it might be how many times do I have to tell you? You have to pick them at the time, right? So if you just don't even respond to me, maybe that one needs it more urgent. But if it's 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe not respond for an hour
Yeah,
or two and say 5 o'clock. And that's all you need to write.
right.
I when I was teaching, I would tell other teachers that I never thought I had to respond immediately to emails. Number one, I'm teaching during the day. So it's difficult. I never heard when emails came in because they were always on the computer. So that wasn't anything I had set up. And I told him that I would respond within 24 hours. And usually by the end of the day, to be honest, I could get back to him. But it also lets the parent, if they are upset about something, kind of sit on it for a few hours and know that it's not earth shattering. The world's not going to stop and it gives
Mhm.
everybody some breathing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of just to back up a little bit, when people hear the word trauma, of course, we think about some huge catastrophe, something really, earth
Earth shattering.
shattering.
Right,
Do
right.
you think divorce is considered a trauma?
I do. I because I think one, I mean, that can very well be earth shattering. I mean, it's shattering your beliefs and that is a trauma, and it's something that needs to be, I don't know the right word, handled, dealt with, responded to, to carry action. I read a quote somewhere, and it was, all trauma is stress, but not all stressors are trauma,
I
right?
like that.
Because, I could be stressing out right now because my house isn't clean and I have company coming over and I need to get all this done. That's not traumatic. It's stressing me out. I've got to get it done, right? But going through a divorce is most definitely on that.
Mhm.
There are several, I guess, areas or levels of trauma. Besides you said a trauma, divorce, death. And someone once told me that divorce is a death of a relationship. Adopting, moving, those kind of.
Yeah, I like that, and it's true, and I think that there's a lot of words that kinda become trendy in society, like
Mhm.
narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist now,
Right.
and I hear that a lot in my work, and trauma, like having to wait 10 minutes for your coffee at Starbucks is like, "Oh my gosh, my
Oh,
trauma of the day," it's like it
what
gets watered down.
it does. In fact, that's kind of funny you say that. I was at the doctor's office this morning, and the woman was sitting next to me, and she kept saying all these things under breath. I mean, she was cussing under her breath, I'll be honest. And I was just like, and finally, like, she laughed, came back and said something else, and I didn't have to speak. And I said, "I'm sorry, did you say something?" She said, "No, I just hate waiting. I just hate waiting, It's like, wow, she
Yeah.
just got here,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it is. It's just what we call as a society. The other word is trigger or
Yeah.
trigger. That is you.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the kids these days, I
Yeah,
like to
they're
say,
triggered by everything.
I hang out with my niece sometimes who's, like, 18, and she's like, "My gosh, so triggering," and I'm like, "Is
Is
it?"
it really? Like you said, waiting in line at Starbucks or waiting an extra 10 minutes or 15 at the doctor's office. I know when I go to the doctor's office, I'm going to have to wait, right? I take a book.
Right.
Now,
Right. And so I think even those going through a divorce, I mean, we all know someone who's been
sure.
divorced or our parents were divorced or like it's
And
touched us
remember,
somewhere at some point. And so I think everyone's aware that it's not great. It's stressful, but until you're in it and dealing
right.
with it, it's really hard to understand like
Yeah.
the layers of overwhelm and stress.
Mhm.
So, why do you think divorce or separation affects us so deeply, even if we are the ones who initiate it?
Well, again, it's a big change in your life, right? You've been married to however, whether it's 6 months or 6 years or 30 years, it is a huge change in your life. So, and I mean, like I said, big change can be traumatic, even if it's marriage, like getting married. So many people stress out over the wedding, right? You wanted this, your partner wanted this, like you go through so much stress building up to that
Mhm.
wedding day, possibly the day out. Divorce is also a negative thing. So the trauma built into that. And what are my parents going to say? What are my kids going to say? What the family and friends say? And you're carrying that burden. Something that didn't work. So I'm sure a lot of people feel like that was a failure.
Mhm.
That things work, some things don't. On baking a cake, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Right? We've all got
Mhm.
pursue. But you move on and keep going.
Yeah, and I think that's so true because like you said, it can bring on shame,
Mhm.
guilt, embarrassment,
Sure.
feelings of like failure. But also if you look at the flip side, we also know couples, like maybe our grandparents or our grandparents' friends or our in-laws who have been married for 30, 40, 50, 60 years and they have the worst marriage you've ever seen. So it's like
Exactly.
the longevity of it isn't necessarily a indication of success.
Correct, right, because yeah, and I do. I mean, I have friends who've been married. They're like, "Oh, yeah, well, we've been married, whatever, 35 years." And I'm like, "And how many of those have really been happy? And how
Right.
and how good has it been for the kid?"
Right.
And so and sometimes it's just cutting your losses from, you know what, this really isn't working,
Mhm.
knowing that it wasn't anything that we failed at. It's just and people change over time. You know, it's
Mhm.
grow in different directions. And I think that's what people they have to be kinder to themselves when going through any kind of trauma, whether it's
Mhm.
divorce or death, you know, and saying, oh, you know, my parent died X number of years ago, my spouse died, and and I'm still drinking. And that's okay. You know, there's no time limit on that. But you have to give yourself grace and time for yourself.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, are there actual exercises that you can do to give yourself grace or to help with when you're feeling that huge amount of stress?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked because when I do my stress management classes, and I actually did one this past weekend, we did a complete wellness retreat that I went to 2 other women on, and so there are a lot of components to it. And I do a lot of different breathing exercises. One
Mhm.
is, I don't know if I can do it. I might be able to. So it's taking a deep breath, but it's called the four square method. You know that. So if I use this on a podcast, if you're gonna like put your finger down on your desk, right? And you draw a line going up, and that's when you breathe in with the count of four. One, two, three, four. And then hold it for four. You know, and exhale, breathe in again. Four. And just kind of repeat that as,
Mhm.
you know, not very quickly, but as slowly or as quickly as you want. And that helps regulate the breathing. It gives you a tactile way of doing it, you know, so you know it's where you're going. And that can help slow your nervous system down. The other thing, this is something I taught for years, and says something to physically just stop. Take that deep breath and start to breathe and talk at the same time here. But breathing in and you just count however many breaths, however many seconds it takes. When I would get frustrated with my students, I would start doing that and they would all go, oh no. And they would know. So I wasn't yelling at anybody. And it's just like,
Mhm.
I need a minute. And I would keep like it's the same thing. I breathe in. And it's important to breathe in through your nose. Things like that. I have really technique we like way that's what setting up appointments to be that. But I really think that
Can you talk about sound baths a little bit? Because I think that's something else that I at least have been seeing a lot more of in like the therapy world and like being advertised. And I think a lot of people aren't really familiar with what it is. So can you speak to it a little?
yes. Sound I did not know that sound baths were till fairly recently. And since that point I've done two. And what it is somebody the person who's doing it, they have these really large bowls. And I don't know if it's the same with everybody, but the person that I was doing it with had different colored bowls. And each bowl has a different pitch and tone. And it also, and that tone matches the chakras in your body. So I have to about maybe 6 or 7 chakras. The company does 13. They don't have that sort of stuff today. And they match. So, for example, if you want it tones is for your heart, and one is for your
Mm.
first chakra, and the tones kind of meld together. And you are lying down in a white space. Nothing closing your eyes, so you're not giving them any distraction. And the person playing these tones, scientifically, I didn't know exactly how it works or what exactly, but it helps these, I guess, sound waves go through your body. And I
Hmm.
will be honest, the first time I did it, I was like, I don't know how that would work. Like, no, I kind of don't believe it. I have done it twice now, and the second time I did, I will tell you, it was amazing. I've been having some terrible, foot pain for over a year and a half. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done it all. I've been there all the time. Like right now, I do not have that. The pain is temporary, but just before. And throughout the thing, I could feel like very cold waves coming through my body at 3 different times.
Interesting.
It really was. And I know it sounds to a lot of people very woo-woo or hippy-dippy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be the first time to say that that's how I felt. And here's the thing, not everything works for everybody.
Right.
Right? So you
Mm-hmm.
may go into it going, okay, this thing's great, and that's okay. Try something else. Try different cooking techniques. Try fascia, bubble bath on a big phone, just take your time to go sit in the bathtub where you, there are so many things.
Yeah, I think again, I think this whole self-care trend has gotten a really bad rap, right? Because try telling a single mom who's overwhelmed, there's not enough hours in the day, like go to a sound bath, go do
Yeah,
yoga. She's
right.
gonna roll her eyes at you, right?
She
And so it's
will.
like,
So I say start out small.
right.
You know,
That's what I say. I'm
when
like, even 5 minutes, like having your cup of coffee in the morning in
yes,
silence
yes, right.
can make a whole difference in your day.
It can. So, if the kids are getting up at 7, it might be hard, you want that last half hour of sleep, just get up a half hour earlier so you can sit quietly and have coffee. Just depending on where you are and the weather is crazy, of course, this week. I don't know that I would recommend it, but get up a half hour early, and if you can get outside and walk,
Right.
it's 7 in the morning, you can hear it count back. Do something for yourself. Read a
Mhm.
book. A lot of people meditate, they pray, they read the Bible and look around, it's kind of thing. And another thing is, whatever you're doing in the morning, try to do that in the evening once everyone's gone to bed. Because I feel like it's kind of like two bookends that goes,
Mhm.
starting your day like this, you're ending your day like this. And you
I
also
like
have
that idea.
to look forward to that, it's like, okay, too ready for kids in bed. I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
some bed at 9 what's that brave non-figure. Right? Even
Yeah.
TV, definitely not your phone.
I was gonna say I think it's helpful if we can get in the habit, and I have to do this a lot of days where I'm like, don't watch TV, don't get on my phone. It's so much overstimulation especially when you're already feeling overstimulated, or if you're already feeling really like having a negative day, getting on social media or like watching these shows that like we all like a good show where we can just kind of go brain dead, right?
Yeah, and you do. And the problem sometimes is you think, well, social media also with that, that's easier. You get into that mindset of, oh, Sean's out there having lunch with, so and so. Why wasn't I invited?
Mm,
Or even if you can get know how old you are, I think you resort back to that 16-year-old self where you're
mhm.
trying to compete or not feeling popular. And first of going through a divorce, you're not feeling great about yourself, right? So don't let
Yeah, and especially if you get on and you see all of these happy families
families
doing 4th of
feel.
July pool time together, it's not going to make you feel better.
No, it isn't. And even sometimes you gotta be careful with TV, like, use this maybe a point example, but like a Hallmark movie, like, we're just be watching TV and you're like, oh, that's a good, chick flick or whatever. When you start watching that, you're like, oh, what are you gonna people on TV that happen? Well, that's made up, right?
Right.
And you
Mhm.
can't compare. But we do one thing on TV. But take the time to walk outside, and walk in the grass with you barefoot or pick up a ball or please. If you
Yeah.
can, this is a tricky part. If you can pick up your phone and do a breathing app or classical music, now we have, Google and Siri and that one that starts with an A that I can't think this was stuff. Those kind of things can do classical music and, spa music, that kind. So try using that.
Mhm. How do you think, I mean, we've talked a lot about like stress and overwhelm and balancing everything. How do you think that, I mean, I think we all have felt this before, but like the effect that this chronic stress or overwhelm has on our parenting, especially during divorce when you're having a co-parent with an
Oh,
ex-partner?
it's a huge thing because it's like if your stress level, like you say, normally to 4, you're going through divorce, it's going to be off the chart probably, anywhere from 8, 9, 10 or more. So I know for me, when I'm under a lot of stress, especially, kids are young, then little things like the reading, or me was like, why can't we do that? And I went through divorce, 3 kids in school, put the work, or put the thing, my parents, anything. So when you're doing that, at least that the divorce is it, right? You cannot getting like happy. Give yourself, even tell your kid, hey, mom needs a minute.
Hmm.
You know, if it is to walk out of the room for
Put yourself in timeout instead of
put
them.
yourself in my mouth, right? Exactly. Say, I need 5 minutes here when you all just get that to me. And hopefully they will see that that's what that and you said it. Mom needs 5 minutes, or she's really never yell at me. or go with that. And I'm sure the
Mhm.
kid will pick that word, oh, I'm on need to time out. So doing things like that and it's the same breathing technique when they are just getting on your nerve and you're going, let's all be from.
Mhm.
Here's something else that you can do. So also with your kids. The kids are there and I'm just letting you really think in your head 5 colors. You don't want to tell me out loud, just think the 5 colors. You see, these okay. You'd be a good touch right around 2 things that you could hear in one.
Mhm. I love
And
that exercise.
it just sort of calms everybody down. They forget what they were asking for. And then you can,
Mhm.
and, and here's the thing, because I've had people tell you, what if I forget? It doesn't matter. What you're doing is using your 5 senses. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sight, taste, touch, hearing, and see. So, if you got, I did 1 5, but 5 4 3 2 1 is what you're looking for.
Mhm. And I actually saw somewhere it was a good idea because, it's easy to say all of these things now, but like when you're
Right.
in the moment and you're like that guy from, Inside Out and you're red
Mhm.
and you're like
Yeah.
shooting flames out of your head. We're
Yeah.
not thinking clearly. We're not thinking about like, okay, what are those exercises again? And so somebody said, to write it down like on your notepad or something on your phone and like screenshot it and make it the
Mhm.
background picture of your phone. So it comes up like when you're on your phone, which we constantly are. And so
Right.
even just putting like sticky notes around your office or your house to
Mhm.
remind you because yeah, I think that it sounds all good until you're in the minute and you're not thinking about like how
What
do
were
I
they
deal
supposed
with this?
man, that is very true. The other thing, and I kind of supposed to say, is with practice, it comes more naturally.
Yes.
But
And
it's hard,
practicing it when you are calm.
right? Practice when you are calm. When you're just to death, you're typing, maybe you're typing out an email and you send it, then just stop for a minute. What else I colors in my outfit? What also
Mhm.
things like that. If those things those steps, so to see, have that.
And I also think that it's good. And you mentioned this before, but like when you are doing it to calm yourself
Mhm.
down and your kids are around, they pick up on that
Yeah,
and they start doing it,
yeah,
right? And like,
mhm,
naming your feelings, they're able to name their feelings much better and doing your breathing exercises. So it's not this foreign concept. And then we're raising the next generation of people who are going to be much more regulated and able to handle the stress because we've given them the skills to cope.
right. If you grew up in a household where everybody's screaming at each other, and that's what the kids know, And I found this stuff a hard way in school on kids who were just cussing all the time. You're like, you stop. You're cussing. Like, why? My parents did. And they truly did not see the disconnect of that is not appropriate. But,
Right.
so if you're yelling at your kids, then more than likely they're going to around yelling for their friend.
Mhm.
But if you stand that regulating their breathing, their actions, it goes a long way. And again,
Yeah.
do it with a kid when all of you are calm, when you are at dinner. You see it.
Yes. Yeah.
Start there before you watch TV. Yeah. In the car as you wake up.
Yes. And I do want to just mention like when we were talking about either when we are in that high triggered moment where we can't think straight or our kids are having a meltdown for one reason or another.
Right.
You said you learned something the hard way. I'll tell you what I learned the hard way, which we all have to learn, which is like you can't stop that reaction by like I know sometimes when our kids are upset, we try to talk sense into them. Like just pick the other shoes. It's not that big of a deal. Like it is a big deal to them and those are the shoes that they wanted and now they can't have it for whatever reason. And so like instead of trying to reason through this feeling, sit in that emotion of I'm really sad, I'm really angry, I'm very frustrated. And like if it's your kid, just hold them. Don't try to talk to them because they can't hear anything
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're saying. So like all they need is like that comfort or the
Right.
exercise of breathing or the senses. And then later, when you guys are calm, okay, let's revisit what happened with the shoes. What can we do next time so that maybe we don't have this, Now, granted,
Yeah.
you're probably going to have a meltdown over it 5 more times, but eventually
Right.
we'll maybe learn.
The two things that you said at once, give your kids hugs when they need it. And sometimes when they're crying, you're angry. I mean, you might even want to say, and I know this sounds, yeah, it's okay, but do you need a hug? Can I give you a hug? Or even,
Yes.
I need a hug. We can give me a hug. That way they're
Yeah.
giving you. So it does calm down. And a lot of times, most of us just say, I'm so mad. I'm so angry. It's a very blanket statement. But if you can ask them, okay, are you frustrated? Are you sad? Are you,
Mhm.
like that movie that you were talking about? Go back to all of those emotions. What exactly are you angry about? A lot of times they don't know.
Mhm.
They just know that there's something making them mad. But if you say, well, I'm just feeling frustrated because I worked really hard on this project and I only got a reason.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of us, like myself, I had to really teach myself the vocabulary of feelings because
Yeah.
I was not brought up in a household where we talked about feelings. And so, like, I couldn't even name
Yeah. I don't
what
think
I
they,
was feeling.
I don't think you could. We were either happy or mad, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and then when you have kids, you're like, okay, you're like reteaching yourself, right? So we got this feeling wheel pillow that has,
Oh
it
yeah,
has like
yeah.
the four main ones, but then underneath, sad, happy, angry, whatever, like you said, it goes out. And like, what are the other words to
Right.
describe? And then it goes out again. And now you're learning all of these words to communicate. How you feel, and the kids pick up on it. They'll go over to the pillow and they're like, "This is what I'm feeling." And you're like,
Right.
"Great. Let's
And
talk
they have
about
it in
it."
schools now. They have it in school starting in elementary school, and I had it in my class in middle school. And there are lots of different feelings chart will tell them. There's no one right one or a wrong one, but
Mhm.
a lot of times kids will come in and I will have sticky note on the desk, especially for where I taught. I'm going to ask college or PG, and it does take training with a lot of that. For the sometimes after the are you involved in before you get involved, even color, like the little kid, it's
Mhm.
color. So it does help them really pinpoint.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good for you as a parent. I think that we have this idea that we have to have it all together. We can't show any weakness to our kids. We, have it all under control. But I think, well, yes, you have to be the leader, you have to be the
Sure.
decision maker. I do think there is a big learning component where they see you being human,
Yeah.
having a human reaction and that repair. Like maybe I didn't handle a conversation so great with my kids or I did snap. But what happens when you do take the time out, you calm down? It's not just like act like that never happened and sweep it under the rug.
Right.
It's time to come back and say, mom really lost her cool. I'm so sorry that I yelled like that. I'm feeling this,
Right.
right? I think there's like a huge connection building activity between
It
you and
is.
your kids, and you're teaching them that it's okay to have these feelings, but it's not okay to, take it out on other people. There's a lot to learn from those moments.
There is. The other thing I think all of us as parents, or maybe even as, partners or spouses, is that, and I quite just the people when they're getting married, it's not everything worth arguing about. And,
Correct.
and with your kids, if it is not 32 degrees and snowing outside, and, you can tell them, like, this is not the appropriate weather to wear short. So let's go to your
Mhm.
closet, let's find something else to wear. Right? I mean, certainly you're right. But you know what? Doesn't matter if they're wearing matching socks. Doesn't matter if the top and the bottoms are color coordinated, or, things like that. Or how bad is it that you need to fight with them about cleaning up their room? You probably don't
Mhm.
want to sit in there, and face you didn't take naps, you didn't use up that room. Yeah, if you were going to use that room. But clothes on the floor. It might be something where you say, look, you can do what you want, but by the end of the week, I would like it if you could get rid on
Mhm.
that. So have some leeway there.
Yeah.
Just set your own
I love
expectation.
that.
What are you willing to to bend on.
Yes. And I do think, through the divorce process, kids are watching a
Yeah.
lot more than parents think that they are. And so if you do have a triggering ex,
Mhm.
how are you showing up? How are you like the kids are seeing how
They are.
you are showing up to this conversation that you might not want to be a part of. And I tell my kids all the time, in life, you're not going to like everyone and not
Right.
everyone's going to like you, but you have to learn how to move through the world so you're not constantly, butting heads with everybody. And like, what do
Right.
you do when you are in line at the store with someone who's acting irate or,
Right.
whatever the case may be. And so I do think how you treat yourself, take time for yourself, give yourself grace, and then be able to show up to those tough situations through the
Right.
divorce process. They're watching and they're
They are.
learning.
I was gonna say they're watching you learning. They're taking their cues from you. If
Hmm.
you get mad every time your ex calls and you're yelling and screaming at them, they're going to have some animosity, there.
Hmm.
Whether it's toward their dad or their boyfriend or girlfriend or the next door neighbor, anybody, because that's how mom reacts.
Hmm.
So I don't know any other way to do it. So just remember that. It's just like when kids are little, watching their language, that to carry on.
Yeah, and I think a big thing to remember, whether we like to or not, is that other parent is still part of them. And so anytime that you are, disrespectful to the other parent or
Mhm.
talking about the other parent, even like a flippant remark, right?
Right.
Like that really lands hard with the kid because it's like, well, you're basically talking about me and you're talking about things that maybe me and dad have that in common. So now you're saying that you
Yeah.
don't love me because of that. And
Right.
so we have to be really aware.
Wait. Yeah. Yeah. Just something like he's so lazy. That's why he's always late. You know, he may be late, but you got to, and not, you can say he's always late. Well, maybe so, but just, again, and it's hard, and it's hard when you're not in it in the moment
Hmm.
because we all get upset, we all get angry, and just using those being regulating.
Hmm.
So when you are calm,
Correct. Yes. So I think, having those, you need a toolbox, right?
you
Like you
did,
need
you
the
did,
grounding techniques. I think you need, someone to talk to, whether it's a friend, a family member, a coach, a therapist. Because I don't want people to think we're saying just keep it
keep
in,
going, right?
right?
Yeah,
Because that, of course, in itself becomes
well,
dysregulating if you're just constantly carrying all
right.
this frustration and anger.
No, and that's one of the things that I teach in my stuff in the class is was to have a plan. Figure out a place that you call your own, um,
Mhm.
an activity that you want to do, the location, and someone to talk to because whether it's your therapist or the divorce coach, um, a good friend is always good, but that can also backfire
Backfire.
sometimes. Yeah, because I'm thinking like if I had a really good friend, my best friend, and I'm talking to her, and if I'm saying bad things about my husband or ex-husband, I would think that my friend would be, she's trying to be supportive, so she could say, "Oh yeah, he was always late, and he always was rude, and he always was this." So it's just feeding your fire, right? Versus
Mhm.
somebody neutral. Would be like, "Well, I understand that he's late, but he's also got to keep up and drop off kids, and he's got
Yeah.
so sometimes he's got to be careful." But
Yeah, no, I totally can agree with that. Okay, well, where can people find you if they're interested in working with you?
so lots of different places. I do offer stress management classes one on one, and like you come into the corporate city, if you think that your workplace needs some things on good things and common important care of cultural awareness. I'm on LinkedIn under Afreen Gootee, and then I have on my website is thoughtfulmind.net, www.thoughtfulmind.net, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, thank you, and it's been so fun talking to you today. I feel like this is something that you could just talk about,
I don't.
forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there one final thought that you would like to leave with people, or like one thing that you wish moms understood about stress and healing that you could leave us with?
I think the biggest thing I would say or the takeaway would be that, this, and I know it's an old cliche, but this too shall pass. You are
Mhm.
in it right now. It may be a year. I don't know how long the process may go, but in the moment, that moment will pass. And, there's a brighter road, a brighter future. You just have to know that it's there, even with the bumps in the road. So this too shall pass, and you are strong and you can do it. So just keep moving forward.
And don't be afraid to ask for help, I
And don't
think is
ever be afraid
a
to ask for
major
help,
thing.
right? Yeah, definitely. Different help if you need.
All right, Afreen, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will be talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're navigating the challenging journey of divorce and need personalized guidance, I'm here to help. As a dedicated divorce coach, I can support you through every step of the process, providing the tools and strategies you need to rebuild and thrive. Visit my website at shaunawardencoaching.com to book your appointment today. Remember, you don't have to go through this alone. Together, we can turn this difficult time into a new beginning. Until next time, take care and stay strong.